President Yoon Suk Yeol returned to Seoul Sunday, wrapping up a 4-day official visit to the Czech Republic. It largely focused on solidifying nuclear energy alliance between the two countries and further strengthening economic cooperation. 56 different MOUs were signed on this trip, and with the nuclear power plant deal, Korea eyes not just on solidifying its deal with the Czech Republic, but expanding its nuclear power plant export portfolio to the larger European market. For an expert analysis, we now turn to Professor Byung-joo of the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Good morning, Professor Kim.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Hope you had a good weekend.
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Let's review President Yoon's trip. Some of the biggest names of Korea's business community joined President Yoon on this trip to the Czech Republic last week. We knew that the multi-billion-dollar nuclear power plant deal would be the key focus, but maybe you can first highlight for us, how important is this deal?
Right. How important this deal is. To explain that, before I get into answering that question, just let me warn you just a little bit. Wi-Fi on my side shows a strong reception, but somehow I see some instability. So in the middle of the broadcasting, I might have to switch Wi-Fi in between. So just to let you know and let our listeners know.
Thank you for our Monday challenge. Accepted.
Right. I don't know, problem maybe on your side, but there is some kind of instability in the sound. But anyway, how big deal this is? Well, I think visually speaking, we saw it clearly in the photos, the news photos. The biggest names in Korean business community, the heads of all these chaebol groups, Samsung, LG, SK, Hyundai Kia Motors, and GS, as well as the biggest companies like POSCO and Doosan also. The heads of these groups were all there, in one photo together with the President Yoon in Prague. And along his side also the ministers, Korean ministers of Economy and Finance, Industry and Energy, Land and Transportation. I mean, this is like the biggest possible list of the biggest names that's available here in Korea.
It's a very fancy delegation.
Top leadership of the economy and government on the economic side were all there, basically. So can't expect anything bigger than that. So that really highlights and makes this question important, how big deal this is. And to answer that question, I guess the number we can use is 24 trillion won. That's the number we can use.
$17.4 billion.
Exactly. Korea possibly, allowed to build nuclear reactors in Czech Republic. They're talking about 2+2 or 2+3. Not sure exactly how it goes in the future, but a rough estimate is like a 1 gigawatt nuclear reactor capacity, 1 gigawatt capacity nuclear reactor costing about 12 trillion won in Korean currency, and producing 2 of those in Dukovany area, and then possibly Temelin site also 2-3 more coming up. So altogether, that's why they call it 24 trillion won deal. So it is a very big deal. And if we look back 15 years ago in United Arab Emirates, the nuclear reactor there, the Baraka reactors, that total was 20 trillion won. So 24 trillion won is a lot bigger than that. And that's why this is a record-setting, history-making stuff that they're saying. And of course, Korea is getting very close to getting this deal finalized, actually out-competing France. And France is in Europe. It's a European country, not far from Czech Republic as compared to distance from Korea. But Czech Republic has decided to name Korea the preferred bidder instead of France. And this was made possible because Korea's track record in Europe, United Arab Emirates 15 years ago. On this desert country in UAE, no error, no delays. Usually, like this kind of construction project of nuclear reactors and so on, they do have long delays. And France, of course, has a record of helping other countries build their nuclear reactors, but inevitably, almost always, there's long delays. But in Korea's record book, UAE project, no delay at all. So that's why, Korea could get this deal at this point, to have come this far. And Czech President Petr Pavel has mentioned repeatedly that this is just a starting point for Korea in that part of the Europe, because he's continuously talking about not only in Czech Republic, Dukovany reactors to be followed by Tamarin reactors, but also nearby countries like Poland, Slovenia,
Netherlands. Right.
Slovakia, the Netherlands later on. And so this is really, really a big deal here. And I think those factors and numbers kind of support the idea.
All right, so eyeing the bigger European market there, we might just be starting out with Czech Republic. As for the contracts for the Czech Republic, I guess it's anticipated to be finalized sometime next year, around March 2025. We'll keep tabs on it. We've already heard, Professor Kim, critics raise a problem with the price tag. From where I stand, and without further context, 24 trillion won deal sounds good. But some critics point out that the price point Korea offered to the Czech Republic is unrealistic low, maybe countering inflation and the current economic challenges. What is your expert view to that very criticism?
The fact that we can start with in answering the question would be the firmly established fact that Korean, the player, here in this case, Korea Hydro Nuclear Power,
Right.
KHNP, they have accumulated their technology and know-how over the past several decades. And as we mentioned, they were hugely successful in UAE before. And the unit cost that they offer as compared to France's rival EDF, less than half, maybe 40% of the cost that French side offers. They're talking about in building these nuclear reactors, in terms of output of it, per kilowatt cost, they're saying KHNP offers 3,500 as compared to 7,900 of France's EDF. So it's about 40%. So there is no competition in terms of cost. And, if I were sitting in, the Czech Republic's policymakers' position, even though France is a European, EU member and the country that you have to deal with and then get along with in the long run, because you're in the same region, there's no comparison in the cost. So there's no way you can offer the deal to France rather than Korea. So that fact is very, very strong. And so that's how Korea could offer such a low price, if you will, upfront. But of course, as you mentioned, the criticism, this could be, they even use the words dumping. That's going very far, but
Right.
they're saying, well, it could be dumping. And then they're even saying, I mean, it's unbelievable that these words are coming from Koreans' mouth, in fact. But some of the supporting point on their side is that as much as 60% of this 24 trillion won deal has to be spent inside Czech Republic through the cost of hiring workers there and hiring suppliers and then things like that. So 60% of 24 trillion won has to go to Czech Republic back. And we're getting only 40% of 24 trillion won. And that's why they are saying this is a bad deal. The critics are saying a bad deal. But the thing is, again, if we refer back to the low cost and everything, that to start off with, that argument doesn't stand well. And also, strategically speaking, this is inevitable thing for the second movers. There's a fixed term in business strategy that they often called first mover strategy, right? When you're the first one going to market, you can charge premium and you can make big profits. But we are second movers following France, United States in the world nuclear power generation market. So in order to compete, to catch up with the leaders, second movers have to offer price advantage, and that's what we are doing. And then also we can offer price advantage because of the learning effect, and then we are much more, second movers tend to be much more effective players than first movers anyway. So this is the overall picture where different factors come into play altogether. So we cannot easily say it's a the cost doesn't make sense, dumping and stuff. They don't have a ground in a way for making that argument the way I see it.
All right. Let's also bring up the aforementioned France's EDF and also the American Westinghouse, starting with the American competitors. So, U.S. Westinghouse is challenging Korea hydronuclear power deal. When it comes to that, we hear differing views. So, what is a good way to understand the issue and its prospects?
Getting to the final finish lines, there are three players in the game here. Korea's KHNP and France's EDF, and also Westinghouse of the United States. And then Westinghouse withdrew because they could not compete in terms of price competition. And quickly they filed a suit in U.S. courts saying, look, there's an agreement between the United States government and the Korean government saying that Korea has to get a permission from the United States Department of Energy every time it exports nuclear power generation technology. And the thing is that case was struck down by Washington, D.C. District Court last September. But Westinghouse is challenging it again at the appeals court at this point. And so that's why there is this kind of barrier, if you will, that stands. And observers are saying that, this is basically Westinghouse demanding more money because indeed Westinghouse has certain intellectual property rights over Korea's nuclear power technology, but it has to be argued and disputed whether actually this particular technology that Korea will be offering to the Czech Republic will be the one that Westinghouse has as much of such a right or not. That needs to be discussed. But at the end of the day, observers note that this is Westinghouse just wanting more money for this deal because based on this U.S.-Korean government agreement last time, 15 years ago when Korea got the UAE BRCA the nuclear power deal, Westinghouse got about more than, I guess, in terms of 10% of the deal. It was a $18 billion US dollars deal, and then Westinghouse got about $2 billion in the form of the loyalty for technology and as well as supply side of the agreement and so on. So they got a considerable deal, and this time they want the same or even more.
It's a similar fight. Okay.
Similar kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's a fight over money, critics and observers are saying. And so if we can find a way to seek a win-win strategy and something you can call partnership agreement or something like that, things will be worked out. That's why the optimists are saying that this is not a really big deal. This is not a fundamental barrier against Korea's finalizing the deal with the Czechs.
Professor Kim, as you mentioned, the Czech government picked Korea over France in the final tender round. What can you tell us about France's EDF and their case against Korea then?
They were saying that EDF did the same as what Westinghouse did. What Westinghouse did was, as I mentioned, they appealed in U.S. court and then they went to appeals court after being struck down. But additionally, what Westinghouse did was they filed a petition to the Czech office for the protection of competition, it's sort of like a KFTC, Korea Fair Trade Commission, where we have a similar body of organization in the government. It's an anti-competition, body. So Westinghouse filed this petition to the Czech government. And what happened in France was EDF also did the same. They filed a petition to the Czech office for the protection of competition. And the thing is, I don't think we have details about what this petition actually says, EDF's petition, but there are different speculations. And basically, there were certain media reports of the interview of EDF's CEO before, and he was making these arguments that observers don't agree with. He was saying that, the KHNP's nuclear reactor model APR 1000 did not get European certification of their technology. But that's not true. KHNP says we got EUR certification early on. So, and then the CEO was saying in the interview, KHNP is basically a kind of subsidiary of KEPCO, Korea Electric Power Corporation, and KEPCO has such a huge debt, and their future is grim, and it looks like KHNP is not a great partner for this nuclear reactor projector. And he was also pointing out the Westinghouse cases and so on. So basically, the bottom line is EDF doesn't seem to have as much of a strong case here. And they're just raising an issue with it because they're the final two with KHNP and then EDF, and then they kind of almost lost the deal, and that's why they're complaining. That's what observers are saying at this point.
All right. And finally, to wrap today's conversation, Professor Kim, as you alluded to earlier, the Czech deal could be just a beginning. Countries including, as you mentioned, Netherlands, Slovenia, Slovakia, Poland, that's where South Korea and Czech Republic together might eye next. So in thinking about Korea's future direction on this nuclear plant export drive, what do you think are some of the key global trends we should be mindful of?
I guess one of the telling cases that we've seen in recent days was, to me at least, September 20th New York Times report on the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactors. As you know, when we say 3 Mile Island, it's one of the biggest in human history in terms of nuclear accident, along with Chernobyl and Fukushima, of course. And 3 Mile Island accident happened in 1979, long time ago. And what was happening at the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor was it was scheduled to shut down. Actually, I think I'm not sure. I have to check the facts, whether it's already closed or it's closing down. But anyway, key point is 3 Mile Island, despite its early announcement of shutting down, Microsoft, US,
for their data centers, right?
Yes, indeed. So, with the AI and all this big, computing power being required for the new kind of technology industry, everybody all around the world, we need more electricity. And so Microsoft said they're going to reopen, they're going to finance the reopening of 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor. So it just tells us the overall turnaround, the overall trend of the world where we see resurgence of nuclear technology. So that's demand side, because we need more electricity because of data centers and all that. The supply side opportunity is that when you look at it, which are the countries that are doing this? Korea, kind of exporting nuclear reactor construction technology. United States, France, of course, as we mentioned, that competed against us this time in this case. And also, there have been China and Russia as their leaders. But what's happening to Russia and China? Russia is under sanctions. They cannot actively do this overseas. And China is a country that all these countries are shunning. They're trying to avoid making a deal with China. So Korea has this very, very unique position where we will continue to compete against the United States and France. And then we did well in this particular case of Czech Republic this time. And then we are on a kind of like a winning spree at this point. So supply side, the picture looks very encouraging as well. So we need to keep in mind demand side, supply side of the nuclear power market in the world, and probably should keep going with the current pace, if you will.
As for the environmental angle, we'll ask another expert on it, but I can't believe we've run out of time. Professor Kim, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
We spoke to Professor Kim Byung-joo of the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.